Welcome to the Playful Domme, the Poly Wife, and the Virgin podcast, where we share our most intimate stories, experiences, and details of our love lives, our intimacy lives, our play lives, and giving you the opportunity to gaze in and get a glimpse of what could be possible in your life as well. As we share our stories, our adventures, we weave in tips, tricks, and techniques to help build your confidence, boost your courage, and give you the opportunity to ask for what you want in your life. Welcome to the podcast. Oh, and just a couple of quick thoughts before we get started. One, we are just everyday people. We are not professionals, licensed therapists, anything like that. This is for edutainment purposes only. This is not medical advice or legal advice, financial advice, nothing like that. Listen at your own discretion. And this is for mature audiences. We're going into deep subjects and sharing deeply about intimacy and all the things about that. So just notice who you're around and let's go.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa.
Hi. Are we ready to talk dirty?
Yes.
Oh, I love these conversations. I got to tell you, I mean, it makes me smile.
My friend Barb is here. Yeah, so I was telling Barb the other day. So may I share our story?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Okay. So Barb was widowed a couple of years ago. And we used to stay here when we were in Salt Lake City. We'd stay with Barb and Dave all the time. It was our second home, really. And then Dave died a couple of years ago, and I were talking because, I want to talk about my dating life all the time. I'm selfish that way. And so I was just telling her about, wanting to date and stuff. And she's like, well, you know what? I don't want to be, and she's in her 60s. And this is kind of, a lot of my friends are in their 60s and early 70s. And she has this saying, and I absolutely love it. She says, well, I don't want to be a nurse and I don't want to be a purse. That was awesome. And I was like, well, what if you just want to cuddle? You could just find somebody who wants to cuddle with you. You don't have to have a relationship with them. You don't have to partner with them. It's like, I've got guys who just want to masturbate for me or just want to hold me or, it's like, it's fine. And she goes, what? And I said, well, yeah, I have a young man who likes to put on girls' underwear and masturbate for me. So he does that once or twice a month. And it was more often earlier, but, and I was like, and now I have guys, I don't want to have a relationship with them. I just want to have fun with them. And it's fine. She said, really? I could do that? I was like, yep. So, of course, I started talking about polyamory and ethical non-monogamy. And so our podcast, and then I've talked to 2 people this week who are eager to hear our podcast. So,
and I have the same thing. So they're like, when is it going to be ready? When is it going to be ready?
And I found 2 topics this week. We definitely need a Google sheet because I thought of 2 topics this week and now I've forgotten them.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful that Barb and I had a conversation because I was like, oh yeah, that's at the top of my head. And I think it was a metamor conversation that I wanted to have because
Metamor.
What is that?
Oh, okay.
Well, hold on a second. So I've written down metamor. I've also written down, we talked about dying on the vine and like getting women back into like, this is your time to thrive, and
I love that. Mm-hmm.
And like that, the coming of age and finding our voices. And then another idea we written down was conjuring men, how like men are like just coming out of freaking nowhere, and so those were just some notes I written down from the last, our last conversation that we had. So.
And I like this, Jess. I think like dying on the vine, coming of age. I think all those. So maybe we talk about those today if we can, because then it kind of builds a, and maybe you'll adjust them and you'll launch them in order. But then it kind of gives a little bit of context, kind of where we're coming from before we go into the D and P.
Oh yeah, the big D and the big P. That's right.
Yeah. And the metamor. I don't even know what that is. You got me on the edge there.
I know. Well.
Lisa,
we're all about edging. Ella.
Yeah,
we are.
So edging, for those of you who are new, edging is about, extending the pleasure as long as possible.
Oh, what is that? Is that metamor?
No, that's edging.
Oh,
To
edging.
me,
Let's talk about that too.
yeah. So Lisa can certainly chime in about that, but how I perceive edging, and I'm sure there's I know that there's a technical definition for it, so we can, maybe Lisa can look up what the technical definition of it is. She's like, I'll be right there. But in my experience of what edging is, it's about getting someone's arousal to the point of almost the peak and then calming it down. And it becomes like a wave where you're bringing someone up into their pleasure, into their arousal, nearly to the peak of them orgasming, and then you're bringing it back down and doing that in waves and waves and waves. And so what starts happening in our bodies, because we're so used to like, oh, just getting to the big O, and like, okay, so we're just like working really hard at that. And everyone's system actually works a lot differently, and so most people aren't accustomed to that, of like this slow build, like this crescendo, and then it's like coming back. It's just, if you just think about like a wave and just doing this, the wave system, and what starts happening is that your arousal will start feeling like it's about a peak, but you're nowhere close to it biologically. So it's like on a scale, so this is what I've learned, that on a scale of 0, like not turned on at all, to 10 being like you've orgasmed, for men at least, once they get to a 9, it's game over. There's no turning back. They're so close to orgasm that it's done. So what I share with men that I work with is, I'm like, okay, when you get to, I want you to let me know when you get to a 6, because we're going to get you to a 6, and we're going to bring you back down to a 3, and then bring you up to a 6 again, bring you back down to a 3. And what's going to start happening is that you're going to feel like you're at a 9, but you're actually at a 6. So they're going to be feeling like these orgasmic waves of pleasure that they don't even know what to do with, and they feel like they're supposed to be able to, they're about to come, but they're not even close to it. So it becomes this really sexy thing that can go on for hours. So Lisa, what would you like to share about that?
Well, I would like to share that I looked up the definition on the International Society for Sexual Medicine. What I did was all I did was a Google search for edging sex, and this was the first thing that came up. And basically what you said was completely accurate, but it says that men with premature ejaculation sometimes use a version of edging. When a man senses that he will climax before he wants to, stimulation stops for 30 seconds before resuming. This is called the stop-start method. Or you can squeeze. So it's not, edging is, I think maybe it was developed because this is a medical version. Edging is not just for men with premature ejaculation. Some men enjoy delaying their orgasm because it makes their eventual orgasm more pleasurable.
Yeah.
So women can edge by focusing on physical sensations during sex. When they feel they're about to reach orgasm, their partner can stimulation.
Yeah, there's so like upstrokes on men's penises tend to like bring, because you're taking the blood flow up there, so it tends to heighten the arousal and the sensitivity. And the head of their penis is like full of neurons. What is it? Yeah. And so nerve ending, lots of nerve endings in it, so it's super, super sensitive. And so in my experience, where I'm trying to pull, to calm them down, to get them back down to the 3, I'll either hold their penis at the base and like grab it, and it's like a grounding technique, or I'll downstroke also, so it's like bringing the blood flow back. And then another thing that I tell men when they're going from localized to globalized, so a lot of times they're just feeling the sensation in their penis, and that's all that, and it creates so much pressure in them that they feel like they need to release. So I tell them to breathe and to spread that pleasure out through their entire body and make it more globalized. And that's something where there's been men that they're laying on the bed and they're like, I have never felt so much pleasure in my entire life. And they're in their 50s, and they're like in every cell of my body, almost like they don't know what to do with feeling that good all over. And so it's a super, super fun technique that anyone can do. And one of my desires in these conversations is also teaching that, I mean, sex can be blown out in so many fun ways. It doesn't have to look a certain way. And to Lisa's point about the erectile or premature ejaculation piece, you know, to also empower women when if they know that they're with somebody, or if there's men listening, of course, but if there's women that are, and of course I'm speaking in heterosexual normative terms, you know, that, you know, please, you know, just bear as we go through all of this, because I'd much rather talk about the sexuality and all the juiciness than trying to figure out how to be PC about absolutely fucking everything. There's just not, it's just like, let's just put the energy where, you know, I respect everyone, of course. But anyways, for those that are with a partner who has a penis and learning how, you know, how to navigate that, because men's confidence is completely tied to their cock. Cock confidence is a really true thing, and you can see it in the men, and it's also such a burden too that men carry, you know, because it's not just enough to get a woman wet in their mind, and it's not just enough to get a woman to climax, you know. It's like they are striving to be, most of them are striving to be the best lover, so that like even if a woman can't climax once, can you get her to climax multiple times? And so there's a very performance-based, our society is really placed emphasis on performance, especially for men. And so there's a man that so a brief story, there's a man that I am dear friends with, he's 50, and he had this issue where he couldn't stay hard for longer than 3 minutes. Or actually, no, it wasn't even that. He would, even if he just touched his penis, like he would come in like 3 minutes, and it would be pre-cum, and he wouldn't even really be hard, and he did not feel like a man at all. He felt not like a man, and it devastated, had such an impact on his psyche and on his confidence and how he showed up in the world. Like, it's a really true thing. And for weeks I was asking him, I was like, hey, I can do this massage on you. Hey, like, can you, like, let's try this? And he's like, yeah, I'll see. And it took 6 weeks for him. And we were staying in the same house. It took him 6 weeks to say yes. And again, this 50-year-old man who's never been able to stay hard more than a few minutes, who orgasmed in 3, and his dick was still soft, and like all this stuff. And sitting with him and being with him and guiding him through this, you know, penis massage technique that I have, and he was able to stay hard for over an hour.
Wow.
He didn't orgasm before. He didn't have an early ejaculation. It was like the most paradigm shifting thing that happened in his life, because he had such a belief system around his arousal, and he had proof of it, right? He had evidence, like, look at this over and over again. I have proof that, you know, I can't perform. I don't have this. And he was getting to this place. He's like I said, I've never felt so much pleasure in my life. I don't even know what to do with this pleasure. Oh my God, I didn't even know it was possible to feel this in my body. Like, and he was able to let go of like his fear about like releasing early. He was able to let go about like not having a hard dick. Like, you know, he was just able to like let go of it. And to the point that like it defied all logic, all reasoning, that like he was able to stay hard for over an hour, and then he could release. And what it did in his life was so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Because I did live with him, so I could see the after effects. That like the next day he had this blast of masculine energy, and suddenly he's taking charge and taking action and making these decisions and having that hard conversation they've been putting off and dreading for months, and it was like this and this and this, you know. And so it was really, really awesome to see it. And we did a couple more rounds of that, and he understood energetic enough. But because I think the other thing too is that because porn has become so like a short circuit, it's a bypass to immediate release for men. And they forget actually how powerful they are in their release, like their sperm, like it births worlds, literally 40 million worlds every time. And for them to understand that it's not just orgasming and getting a release, like, but they can actually harness that power and channel it into big things in their life. So for us as women to be able to provide that for our partner, that instead of, or whoever we're playing with, that instead of them coming in being like, yeah, I am an early, I come really early and it's hard for me to stay hard, you know, like that, it implodes on their confidence. So giving whoever's playing with men these kind of little extra tools and tidbits, it really can be life changing. Like, whereas life is now a year later is really quite exciting. And that's really important. So that's my story.
And Jess, will you share some of this in the after hours, kind of, you know, without, I guess, giving away all of your secrets, but will you show us some techniques so we can share with our partners?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, because I have two partners, one who has difficulty sitting hard, just like you. He's older. And then, you know, as I'm thinking about it, suddenly I've gone from lovers who are all mostly younger than I am to lovers who are my age or in their 50s. I was going from, you know, I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and now they're all in their 50s to 60s. And so
Lisa, I'm curious, why is that? Why do you think you've had the transition? Is it just because of where you're at in life? Or are you looking for a different lover, I guess?
No, not at all. I'm just honestly recognizing that in the moment that I have 5 what I'm calling permanent men in my life, the ones that I intend to have ongoing, that I experience a relationship feeling with. And the youngest of whom turned 50 last November. He's my boyfriend, my pilot. The guy who taught me about tantric and using the energy, he's, I don't know, he's probably 55 or 56. And and the two men that I've just started with are 56 and 54 or something like that. It's just weird because, and I've met all of those men on apps that were not FetLife. So while they may have profiles on FetLife, I met them on a swingers site. I'm enjoying them more because they are patient and which is really helpful. It doesn't mean that younger men aren't patient, but I had an experience. So the reason I'm asking Jess, I want to follow up what I was asking Jess before, which is I really do want to learn a technique, because for one of I would love to be able to give them a massage, and not all of these men are wanting to please me. So I'm grateful. It's fantastic. It's a completely different experience than what I've had before. Not that other men haven't wanted to please me too, but these guys take their time. They are slow lovers. And I realize that I love slow sex, which is also the name of a title of one of my favorite books, Slow Sex. And that was the other thing. I wanted to make sure that we keep putting our resources in our, like, if we're doing the podcast, that people have access to links to the book, for instance, of Slow Sex. So what I want to do is so last week I was with my newest lover, and he is an oral pleaser. That is really all he wants to do. And because we're new lovers, and because he hadn't had his panels returned yet, we were using condoms, and he is unable to have effective intercourse with a condom on. And he's 56, so he's just a year younger than I am. And he's partnered with another woman, and all of his other time is spent with her, and they're fluid bonded. They've been together for 3 years, and he intends to be fluid bonded with me, which is great. But I'm going to run across men all the time who I require to wear condoms. And so I would love to be able to give them a kind of release like they've never had before, because they're making the sacrifice for me wearing a condom, and they can't come with it on. So I would, for the ones who can't, I have another lover who is perfectly happy wearing a condom. He wears them all the time, and he's 56 and he doesn't have any problems at all. So, but still it would be fun to just really torture them in the most exotic and erotic way for a while.
Yeah.
This new oral lover, I honestly, I think I had 6 orgasms. I not climaxes, because my orgasms seem to be different, but I just couldn't stop coming, squirting, and it was just over.
So Lisa, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think there's some of our listeners that maybe don't know the difference between a climax and an orgasm, just as kind of something.
I can only explain it for myself.
Yeah, sure.
I have always called orgasm what I have seen in porn and experienced with men, where they have a climax that takes over their body and they ejaculate, and they have to have a long recovery period.
A break, yeah.
A break. So for me, I would describe that wholly as a clitoral orgasm. For me, if my clit is stimulated long enough, properly, I can get to that point. However, I recognize, but I understand, and I have not experienced a vaginal orgasm through intercourse. So I do not have an orgasm, a whole body experience when I have intercourse. Intercourse for me is the most boring thing. Jess, can you talk more about that?
Well, I was going to say yet.
Yet.
So there's always the opportunity. I'm just making a note. Okay. Well, there's definitely different kinds of orgasms that you can have. They talk about the G-Spot orgasm, the clitoral orgasm, the cervical, in the cervix, like the deep orgasm. And it's about hitting those different spots and spaces and places in people. So for me, I am able to orgasm inside when I'm on top. It's easier for me to control. I'm able to get a better angle. There's something about that the man's penis, when it's erect, it's, pointing back toward himself, right? So it's up back toward his body. So for me to sit and then be able to hit inside that spot, it's easier for me to orgasm when I'm on top than in any other position. Which, by the way, side note, we've been told there's the cowgirl, the riding on top, but it was actually considered the goddess position. So this goes back thousands of years into the temples when the priestesses would ride on top of the man, and that was called the goddess position, was on top. So that many of the goddesses are seen in that position when they're seen riding on top of lions and everything. It's like a symbolism, it's symbology that they are the ones that are used to riding on top of the masculine. And there's another deeper technique they can either demonstrate or get another priestess to show you that really does give women a different kind of control sitting on top. And it's not sitting on top like we're accustomed to, like we're sitting on a horse, but literally having our feet planted and pivoting and swiveling our hips, really giving it okay. And so that is the ultimate goddess position. It's amazing what belief systems we can build up in our minds. And I think part of it is just being willing to let go. And this has been a long journey for me. I've been really wanting just to stay in my belief systems and patterns that things aren't going to, I can't orgasm or this can't happen or whatever it is. And then we create a narrative and then start sabotaging ourselves to confirm that narrative and to keep it going in our system. So when we meet lovers who defy the logic and reasoning of the narrative of the pattern and belief system that we've built up for ourselves, it becomes quite an ego shock almost in a way. And it's oh, now this is possible. Oh shit. So to me, the orgasms can happen in so many different ways, and it's, they can be fast, they can be slow, they can be with vibrators, they can be without. I was and I'm in a different season of my life now where the last few years have been very frowned upon to use a vibrator, especially on our clitoris, because there's so many nerve endings in there. That it becomes overstimulated, it becomes numbed out, desensitized, and it's so sensitive. It has that little clitoris, like the part that we see, has as many nerve endings as the entire man's penis head, and we have that in like our little itty bitty nub that we have right there. And the clitoris actually goes much deeper into our bodies. We just see the nub piece of it. So I was not using a vibrator for a while, or I was feeling guilty if I did, like I was cheating the system and the practice, because I was trying to get to a certain place. And a few days ago, I actually utilize the vibrator in a different way. I don't know how. And I started just getting all these amazing downloads and shifting my energy and having these healing things happen within myself. And so I'm learning more and more that the stories we tell ourselves really do have an impact on our experience overall.
That's absolutely true. And so up until now, I have said, well, I've never had a multiple orgasm. I don't know what a multiple, how is that even possible? Because again, with my release, my male style orgasm, clitoral orgasm, it's like, I can't imagine doing that more than once in a 5-minute period. But now Jess, I'm really grateful for you for naming the G-Spot orgasm, because I realized that I may be having multiple G-Spot orgasms, and that is what is getting me to squirt so much. So
you're definitely orgasmic.
That is totally that. And so me just saying, oh, well, you're just getting me to squirt, that's not an orgasm for me. But in this case, he was edging me, and I just over and over, and I never tired of it. I didn't have any kind of orgasm exhaustion, right? He just was able to keep me going. So I think that at the same time that I was having multiple orgasms, he was edging me as well. And so that was really fantastic. Now we'll have been apart for 10 days, the equivalent of at minimum 3 nights that we would have been together. And he's been really great about communicating with me and creating the space for me to feel loved, safe, and secure.
Oh, that's great.
It's lovely. And we've only known each other 2 weeks, but he's a man who is present in the relationship that is in front of him. I've met 2 men, and both of them say, when I'm with a partner, the rest of the world doesn't exist, right? I turn off my phone, I put it to the side. It is just about us. And I think that maybe that's another thing that's attracting me to older men, is they have the patience and the confidence to know that whatever is happening in the world will wait the hour or 2 or 6 until we're done with our exchange or our experience.
Play, yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I was curious to see what you had to say, because, and you guys can chime in on this obviously more than me, but, there's different seasons, when we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, we're just different people, I think. And so I was curious to see if you had mentioned, the patience.
Yeah, I'm
no hurry, absolutely no hurry.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, this trying to think of because I date so many men, I want to make sure that I keep their anonymity and use the same names, so I haven't named him yet for us. I'll think of it in a moment, but the oral pleaser, we'll just call him oral pleaser. His girlfriend, my metamor, so the metamor is the partner of my partner.
Oh, say that again for people who, say that again, please.
Okay, so a metamor is the partner of my partner.
Okay.
So, for instance, he has another girlfriend who happens to be married. And that woman that he's dated for 3 years is my metamor. So she and I could possibly have a relationship. She and I are developing a friendship. We're getting to know each other in a friendly way. And he and his girlfriend often stay at her home with her husband. So the two men are metamors.
Okay.
She is the
I have
partner
never heard of this before.
partner. Yes. So that's what the term means. It's the partner of a partner. Sometimes I don't know. I have one partner who is married, and the likelihood is I will never meet his wife, just because he lives out of state, and I only see him when he visits my area. So
the metamor, that's the relationship between you and the partner, right? The distinction. Yes. So it's not, so if like John and Mary are a couple and Lisa comes in, that means that Mary and Lisa are metamors.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Not that Mary is a metamor to John, but Mary is his partner. Like it's almost like, yeah, his partner. And then you are
the girlfriend. Yes. And so in this case, the two girls are metamors. And then my husband is the metamor to all of my boyfriends, right? So he is the partner, he is my partner, and he is friends with my other partners. They are metamors. They're not because they're friends, but because of the relationship.
The relationship.
Yes.
I learned something.
I'm the hinge or the V, and I have one partner on my right hand, one partner on my left hand. They are metamors, and they could be lovers or not. And I'm the hinge that holds them together. That's a lot of phraseology in one podcast, but to finish the orgasm thing, I have been seeking ongoing lovers. I haven't had a lot of success with lovers who I could see on a weekly basis, and now I have two.
Okay.
Basis, right? And they're literally, I started with both of them at the same time within the last 3 weeks. Both of them want ongoing meetings each week. And so now I will really have an opportunity with men who are experienced, but also with men who are interested in helping me explore my body and examine and explore and achieve all the types of orgasms.
Oh, that's amazing.
Somebody one time, unless you're experienced and know how to make yourself orgasm, men are, it's a new woman, it's a new toy, it's a new, how do they know? They know in the general area where they need to be, but do they know? No. Do they know your body? No, they're just a play partner for a day. These men will be ongoing. And so one man has already sort of tapped into exactly what makes me tick, and I can just lie back and he can make me come over and over and over again. That's great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
More. My other lover, we haven't had intercourse yet. Ours is more of a mental connection. We spend all of our time talking and very little time engaging in any kind of sexual activity, which is fascinating to me.
But you're demisexual too, right? So that's what I discovered. Sexual is like is your turn on. Yeah. That is the turn on, is having that conversation piece. And I think too, because you have this stable of men that you can play with, there isn't like an attachment to like, oh, this guy needs to provide these needs for me and for my appetite, because I have, now I have this other man that I can play with every week, or I have this list or the stable that like I can like choose my stallions as I desire them. But it's so funny I think it's awesome, to have that. And I'm recognizing it really shifts a woman's confidence when she has more men in her life than fewer.
It does. Boy, howdy.
Oh shit. Like, I have such a story that happened to me yesterday. But what I want to say to you, Lisa, about your point about the man who comes prematurely and things like that. So something that I learned, I studied to become a certified sex, love, and relationship coach through Layla Martin, who through the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality, and fantastic program, fantastic teacher, so deep and really in depth, very comprehensive. And one of the things that I learned is, offering men a penis massage where the intention is not for him to get hard. The intention is not for him to get off. It is not for him to perform. It is literally to put him into receiving mode. And most men have never, ever, ever experienced that. To just lay and receive and appreciate. And so there's different ways of doing it and a technique that I can definitely show in a video in the after hours membership that we have, of like giving you just some different tips. The man can get hard, but that's not the point. The point is for him to be able to relax and just receive. And it's incredibly healing for them on multiple levels, because they can finally let go of the and it might take a while. I'm not saying this happens overnight, but it could, because again, it's about shifting the paradigm and then creating new evidence. So they have new proof and evidence otherwise. So to slow things down, to really take your time. And that's one of the things I love most about being with men's penises, because they're so fun. There's like so much to explore and understand, and each one of them have their own unique personality, and every single one of them is unique in and of itself. Like, again, the point of like the slowing down and taking our time, and Lisa is spot on about like how awesome it is. I don't know if it's an age thing. It could be. It could be the season that Lisa's in, and the kind of men that she's attracting are the ones who do want to go slow and take their time. And then, but the thing is about the more chances that she's had, to be with different men, to see what she likes, to understand what she can give, and like learning new things and techniques. And the fact that like, this isn't about like becoming partners. I've already got my husband. I'm good. Like I've already got the guy. Like I'm here with him to the end. Like we've made it 34 years. We're going to blast through another 33. And that's just what it is. So it's like, and then also to understand what needs aren't being met. And rather than putting it on my partner to fulfill them or make them feel bad that they're not fulfilling it or taking it out on them, like, us opening up our relationship to include other players into the game that can show up with love and respect and intention and play and fun, and then see everyone come alive in bigger ways. It's super exciting. So I can tell you personally what it feels like, the amount of pressure of having one partner and like not feeling my needs are met, or are their needs being met, and are they going to go outside the relationship and it become more of a cheating thing than it being like an open door, like communication, welcoming thing. And I've been in relationships where I was the other woman, and gosh darn it, if it had been ethical non-monogamy, my whole life would have been completely different than what it was in that situation. So to the listeners out there, if you're curious about like, oh, could I actually have more than one man in my life? Absolutely. And that does not make you a slut. That makes you, or if you want to be a slut, like own it. I mean, there's no judgment here, but like for a lot of women, like we've been growing up, they're like, men get high five for being players and women get shamed for being sluts if they're like sleeping around or having sex with more than one person, or, all of this other stuff. And I was talking to my current partner, and he's like, how many people have you been with? I'm like, I don't know, I think maybe 15. And he's like, really? Wow. I thought you've been with way more people than that. Not as a judgment toward me, but because, or like he assumed I would have been more, had more lovers or whatever. But I was like, babe, there's women who've been with 2 men in their entire life, or 4. And they don't know what else is out there, and for him and his in his environment where he grew up, most guys were hitting 20s by the time they were graduating high school, you know,
Yeah.
and just, and women too, you know, so it's just different times and generations. But yes, women, you're allowed to have more than one lover. You can fucking claim whatever it is that you want. It's just, are you willing to go for it? Are you willing to take those steps and leaps? And hopefully these things that we're sharing, like, you know, Lisa with her stories and me with my experiences on a more of a different spectrum, and then Ella coming in, and she has a healthy sex life too. She's just like learning all these new techniques and terms and opportunities. So it's powerful.
Well, one of the things I do want to comment on that is having multiple lovers in your 20s is very different than having multiple lovers in your 50s. Right?
Absolutely. I think that is
100%.
huge. Yeah.
So when I got married when I was 23, I got married when I was 23. It was in the year that I would turn 24. So I got married in June and I'd be 24 in September. So both my husband and I had the same number of lovers when we got married. And sex shaming is going to have to be a whole nother podcast, but I want to touch on a couple of points on it. Is that when I started polyamory, I started counting. I was like, oh, okay, well, he's number 15. Oh, he's number 16. Oh, he's number 17. Because I wanted to keep count so that we could be even, my husband and I, right? And then Jess and I had a fascinating conversation. And again, this is possibly another podcast. We should take a note about this, is what constitutes having sex with somebody.
Oh, yes.
It's like,
that was a great combo.
He may believe, your current lover may believe that you've been with, it may have imagined that you had been with, let's say 50 men, right? 50 people. It doesn't even matter. Men, women, doesn't matter. 50 people. And you may have experienced intimacy of some sort with 50 people, but you may have only had intercourse with 15.
Yeah, very good.
For me, I started writing. So I've kept a little pink book of the men that I've been with. And there was a time
Lisa, we love you.
I stopped keeping my book. And then I went back and I'm trying to remember the men who I have been with and trying honestly to remember whether we had intercourse or not. And I realized that the number doesn't matter. And I realized I stopped counting because I was shaming myself for wanting and exploring a stable mentality. And so I honestly don't know what number I'm at right now. And that number for me is blurred because I include all lovers, whether we've had intercourse or not. Like the great lover of my life, one of the great lovers of my life.
Oh, this is great. This is a great topic too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've never had intercourse with him. We've been together, I don't know, call it almost a dozen times, and we haven't had intercourse. The love making that we do is so intense and so, it's not hot in a porn way, but it's so intense. We are making love. We still haven't had any kind of penis in vagina sex.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would count him as a lover without question, but he wouldn't count in some people's minds because we've never had intercourse, anal or otherwise. I mean, we haven't even cheated having anal, you know what I mean? So
yeah, unbelievable.
It's so funny that like, I feel like men collect trophies and women were not allowed to have any. Like we're seen as like it's so in our culture, it's like the virgin who saves herself. She saves herself for the man, and then like the man is out like gallivanting and collecting the trophies of like his conquests and like all this stuff, and you know, and it becomes like this statement, you know, and so there's a reclamation for sure about our sexual power and our pleasure, and letting go of the numbers and them not mattering, especially for women, because we've been so shamed for our sexual appetite and our desire, and also there's something about too where in our society about like women, so much focus is looking at us. You know, like for men, it's like, look at their accomplishments, look at what they did, look at what they achieved, look at like, you know, how they excelled in the doing. But in the female, it's like who they be. Like, so, oh, you look so pretty today and your dress is so nice and like your hair is, you know, and so it becomes so much about image.
Right.
We're such an image focused culture. And then it's like, oh, did you see she went with that guy and then that guy, you know, I do not at all. I have such a heart for the young women right now. Devastating.
Oh yeah.
I could not, I am so blessed that the kind of picking on and the things teasing that I had in school, like, you know, and that was hard enough, but like just what's happening for so many young girls right now, where it just back to that image piece where it just keeps going more and more into their image, and then do they put out, or, you know, whatever it is, and helping them try to find their truth in there. So I think that the more that, especially of us older women, like seasoned, mature women, like owning and embodying like our power, like that's our modeling, you know. That's
So Jess, back to what you were just saying about, because I am one of those up until, you know, just my recent relationship, is that I had like this steel cage around me, right? I don't want to play. I don't want a casual relationship. It's not me, whether it's right or wrong. I didn't think it was me until we've had these conversations, and it's opened up my mind a lot. And I think it comes back down to, I think owning my power and my control, and saying, hey, look, I don't want to just have a one night stand and just sleep with you. And Lisa, you shared that many, many times now, and Jess, you have as well. You don't have to have that. You don't have to have the intercourse, right? You don't have to be the trophy. So for me, as I continue to listen to your guys' stories, it's been fantastic, really eye-opening. So I just want to say, I was one of those. So.
And having the steel cage up for very, very good reasons. Men tend to be predatory, like that is just part of nature. And so for a lot of us women, the best way to keep the predator out is put ourselves into a cage. Keep us safe. I'm going to put a cage around me. You can't get in, but then I can't get out. And so that's like something too, where I know in women that women have a fire inside of them. They've got a panther, minx, cougar, whatever it is. It's like this really powerful big cat that wants to get out and claim her power and own it and get what she wants and like, you know, let herself be seen. And in one of my ayahuasca journeys, like I understood that women being in their sensuality and their sexuality, that is our nature. And the predator, if it's an animal or a man, it is in their nature to be attracted to that and to come. So what women have often done is we've shut ourselves off, we've closed ourselves off, we've locked ourselves out to try to protect us from the predator that might be coming, but the predators come anyways. Right? Yeah. You still get the men that are going to hit on you, even if you're like, I'm going to like dress down and cover myself up as much as possible so no one will even pay fucking attention to me. I don't want anyone to look at me. And you're still going to have somebody inevitably like making a comment or, you know, making the move or whatever it is. And so learning as women that like, okay, this is nature. Okay, this is nature. This is human. This is organic. This is earth nature that's happening. So how can I learn to dance with this? How can I learn to be in my power and be my sensual and be my sexuality and have boundaries without having a cage around myself? Have boundaries around myself of who I'm going to let come into the space of my, you know, 3-foot radius or 6-foot radius, and what do I allow to come in, and what am I putting out energetically, and giving ourselves those tools to trust that like I can show up and walk around a man naked or in a thong, and I know that he is not going to attack or jump me. I know this because I've done it dozens of times. So
I think that's beautifully said, is because I wasn't in my power, right? I didn't realize that you could say, you know, look, no, here are the parameters, right? I can walk around, you stay in your space. So I think it's really, really, that's powerful. I think the other thing for me is, and Jess, you know me, I have a lot of energy. And I think in the past, and a lot of passion, it's there. and I think I'm going to use the word quote unquote scared some of my partners. You know, I can only think of maybe 1.5 that could handle it. So then you always go in, you know, gingerly and, oh, like, what if, and, but this one is very different. My new relationship, I'm like, no, I showed up. At least I had kind of a funny story, you know, when I first got together with him. And again, he was bold. You know, I welcomed him in, and he was bold in his intimacy. And I said, all right, if you want it, let's see. Right. And so it's been very, very good. I've released a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even know.
And would you say that part of your releasing was because of our conversations? You were empowered by our conversations? Because didn't this relationship started?
It's just been
our very first one.
Yeah, it's very. I've just been very. I think just putting words to what I was feeling. I think, and he's older. I think it's part of, and that's why I was asking you, Lisa. And I think it's who he is. He's very passionate. He's very sensual. He's very. Did I say patient? Patient. I mean, like, it could be hours. He's in no hurry. Zero. Nothing matters. And he's willing to. Yeah, and he's willing to, like, you know, bring it on. You know, I got this, and I'm like, you sure? Sure, let me pass. Right? That's the beautiful thing. It's really great. Unbelievable.
And that's what a reassuring, empowering, and hopeful thing for a lot of women to hear, that it doesn't have to be like you're just laying on your back for that 5 to 10 minutes of the guy, of the partner or the man, like, coming inside of you and feeling like that you're just this vessel that's being, like, used like a breathing sex doll, you know. And you know, it can be different.
Yeah. And Jess, I think you hit the nail on the head again. For me, I didn't want to be that. I don't want to be that. Ow! And again, it's not what I was looking for. And again, he's just very, very different. And we chuckle. You guys are going to laugh about this, because we talked about receiving, right? That his pleasure is giving, and that I'm able to receive. And that was a very eye-opening comment that you guys made as well. I'm like, yeah, so it's a joke that I'm not done with being on my back. And I'm never, I'm like, I'm not done yet. I mean, it's funny. We have this joke. I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. So good. Off the charts. Great. I'm not done. I'm not done.
It's good. I'm going to just clarify. Yeah. It's good because you're willing to say it, and you're with a partner who's willing to be with you for as long as it takes.
Yes. And that, I think, is another huge thing. And I think it goes back to our original conversation again about boundaries and owning power. And again, someone that's willing to understand. Now, there's others that I'm friends with that they would be looking at me like, you're crazy. I mean, they wouldn't even have a clue. So, but again, maybe I just found the right partner for me. Hopefully.
Well, it's a sign that you have found somebody who's compatible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because that was one of the things I've been having this discussion a lot with people, is that this is my first experience with a man who loves oral more than I do. Right. Yeah. So he loves giving oral more than, I don't want to say he loves giving it more than I love receiving it, but I love giving it.
Yeah.
And I am of the mind that I could just give oral in a sexual experience and I don't need anything else. I just enjoy it that much. It's so satisfying to me giving it. And I finally found somebody who feels the same way. I didn't know that men felt that way. I thought that I was just, I just sort of fell in love with the blowjobs because men love blowjobs, and it was a way for me to be expert at a thing.
Yeah, sure.
But it turns out that, oh my gosh, I actually love it. So the fact that Lisa enjoys it as much means I don't have to feel guilty that it takes me forever.
Yes, exactly. Well, and again, for anybody who's listening to this podcast, you have got to look back. Jess, maybe we can put in here, Lisa's conversation about her oral, we had a big long conversation about, remember, oral, about, it was so good. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so funny.
Oh yeah. So we should link back to that conversation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Link back to that. It was so good. Remember, you're like, I'm like, oh, I'm, what's he doing down there? And am I going to fart? And, you know, all those things, all those smells, you know, that.
I saw something on TikTok this week, and she says, like, we're trying to normalize farting. I was like, well, isn't that funny? Because I'm normalizing farting too, just in a different situation.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
I've been trying not to be ashamed of it and just laughing about it with people, and everybody has been so appreciative, and they're like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. It's like, yay, you're not.
Fantastic.
You know, I will say that while I haven't had intercourse with many men, I have a lot of intimate connection with men, and even just with their hearts, you know, just in terms of like closeness and everything. And I actually really love playing with the young men. I think that
you do.
Oh my God. They're puppies. I love the puppies. They just do not have the baggage of life yet, you know? So they're coming in, they're eager, they're excited, they're curious, and especially like, and I'm learning like, wow, it's really cool to be the older lady. It's nice. It's cool to be like the older woman. Like it's actually like a kink for them. So I win. So it's fantastic. And I look young for my age. I look young. So that also plays off really, really well with them. But there's this guy, this was the first young guy that I played with. And this was 2 years ago in Sarasota. Such a special guy. I'll call him Jay. And it was a very special day because I had decided that as a dominatrix, I wanted one of my favorite kind of sessions that I wanted to provide men is a safe space for their feminine to come out. And this is something that's, so we all have the masculine and feminine energies within us. And for men in my training with, as I was getting trained as a dominatrix, there were regular Joes who come, like construction workers who would come off the street, they come inside, and they would step into lingerie and heels and take on a feminine name. And they would take on like this feminine persona, and they get to like dance as her and move as her. And so it was like giving this space. This is one of the things I love about being a dominatrix, is we create a safe space for people to explore all aspects of themselves without judgment. And so then there's like this this piece where they want you, their feminine wants to experience intercourse. They want to experience being you know, and that's through like pegging and strap-ons, and that can be a whole other conversation. But the overall experience to me is like singularly the most vulnerable space to me of a man, is to be able to step into his feminine and go and explore in that way. So Lisa and I were out shopping, and I was like we were getting clothes and things like that for men to be able to dress and show up into. So I was like super high vibe. I was feeling so good. I was like really happy. And this is the importance about magnetism, ladies, is that like, you just never know who's going to show up when you're just feeling so freaking amazing and on top of the world. So Lisa and I were at a Bed Bath & Beyond, and I was in the wine section, and this young man comes up to me and was like, excuse me, I was wondering if you could help me. And I look at him, I'm like, oh yeah. What, how can I help you? And he's like, I've never bought wine before, and I don't know if you could help me out with finding like something that's really good. I was like, oh, my friend Lisa's a chef. She might actually be really good at that. And I was like, oh wait, I can show him. And so I was like, I'm like, well, what do you like to drink? What kind of alcohol? And he's like, oh, I'm kind of like more of a beer guy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. And I was like, well, here's my favorite wine. And so he went ahead and got it, and he started talking to me. And I was like, oh, I really like his energy. And he introduced himself, and I shook his hand, and I was like, oh, I really like his energy. And he just felt like he'd be super, super fun to play with. And so we exchanged numbers, and he had sent me a message immediately. And I responded back, and I was like, I'm a dominatrix, and you seem like you'd be a really fun person to play with. If you're interested, let me know. And that's just like kind of how things started. And it's a really beautiful story, but we actually only spent two nights together that we were playing together. That was really it. But it was a very, very healing experience. This man, I am telling you, is like a sex healing guru. And he had a really deep impact on my life, and I did on him too. We got to play together with toys, and he was the first man that I let him use my toys on me. And so there's like a whole story that I'll share someday about Jay. It's a really beautiful piece of my life puzzle. But anyways, I reached out to him yesterday. So that was 2 years ago. So I reached out to him yesterday, and I just sent him a message saying like, Jay, with a heart. And he's like, hey, what's up, Jess? Like, what's going on? And we're going back and forth. And he's like, what's up? And I was like, oh, I've just been reflecting on my best lovers, and you came to my mind. And he's like, well, I've thought about you every single day, love, and like what our time together was. And that was 2 nights that we spent together, right? So it's been 2 years, and he's thought about it. And so we were going in this dialogue, in this exchange, and he's like, oh, it would be so great to just lock ourselves up into a house for 72 hours with just fresh fruit and water and books. And I was like, this is literally a fantasy that I've been carrying with me since I watched Days of Our Lives when I was 16, which was like, there was this couple that like helped the main couple that like everyone loved, the super handsome, beautiful couple. And they like hold themselves up in the house for a weekend, and the woman comes down with like a sheet wrapped around her to answer the door. And like I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want. Like I want something like that. So I've been holding this fantasy, and I've shared it with several men. I'm like, oh, I'd really love to just get away for a weekend. Like I think it'd be so amazing, just lock ourselves away and just have crazy sex for a weekend. That'd be so great. And they're like, yeah, and that's never happened. And so then yesterday, for Jay to initiate that and be like, I have this fantasy, and I was like, are you kidding me? Oh. And we both like, I noticed like in my dialogue and conversation with them, I can feel it right now. Like I start salivating, and I'm like, there's this weird thing happening in my mouth. I don't know what's going on. He's like, I know, me too. And I'm like, what's happening? We like have it like just like this salivation piece. And I was like, I cannot believe that you've been thinking about me for I would have come back like if like so much faster or sooner if I had known. And he said something so beautiful about like that, basically that quiet seed that you plant and you nourish, and just like in time it comes up, and just like this divine moment. So we got to FaceTime yesterday for the first time in like 2 years, and I'm sharing with him like, supporting him learning how to do sensual body work for women. And he's like, I would love to learn that. Please, like, teach me, like, show me. Like, I would love to be able to do that for women. That'd be so amazing. And so this is just like, this is the thing that I love about, just like this world and these experiences that we can have. And then also the kind of dialogue and relationships that can be created. And it's just, there's so many possibilities. It's so fun. It's such a great game, but it really lit me up. And what happened was like, now that I felt like I had, like, here's the best lover I've ever had, who just like, I've spent some time with Lisa's tantric man, in terms of receiving a massage. And he's a beautiful man. And there's a lot of steps of like, all right, focus on this, then shift on this, and then think about this, but don't think about it, but then imagine this. And so it's taking me out of the experience. And then I realized that when I was with Jay, just by being in his presence, all of my boundaries were coming down, all of my walls. Wow. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't even know his last name. Like, how is this happening right now? That like, I thought like I needed all this criteria to be met before I would let someone into my world. And just his isness, and this is where I got like actually the power of a sexual healer. Just his isness was healing these pieces in me. It was just literally his presence alone was healing me and was pulling things out that like I didn't think were possible. And it's so powerful. So it's a beautiful thing to like, I've had a lot of fun with the young bucks, and I think that they're super sweet and full of life and enthusiasm and excitement. So and then they're puppies, and they're young men who do young men things. So so that's part of the give and take with that. But so sweet. I've had such beautiful moments with the young ones.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say is that my oral pleaser had revealed to me that he'd had an affair with an older woman when he was a teenager. And she taught him everything he knew. She taught him specifically how to please a woman. And, you know, I've been approached by men in their 20s. I'm like, I do not want anything to do with a guy in his 20s, right? I need to learn my body first. I need to know what I want, and in order to be able to teach somebody who's younger. But I have had several men tell me that they had affairs with older women when they were younger, and it changed the course of their sex lives, and that it was really wonderful. And and I have men in their 40s and 50s who also have younger lovers, and they're like, you definitely have to experience that. You definitely. And Jess's story is absolutely 100% a testimony to that. You know, everybody should have a younger lover once. I picked 2 so far, and I loved one of them deeply. We had an incredible connection, kind of like you did with Jay, but we never got to actually be together on a regular basis. And so, or even at all. And the other one, we ended up never having sex. So I haven't had that same experience as Jess, and I'm resistant a little, but you give me such hope. You do really give me hope that I could find somebody really fun in their 20s. But right now, the fun guys are in their 50s, and I'm grateful to the women in their 40s and 50s who taught them what they know.
Yeah, right. And again, I think that's similar to my boyfriend. I mean, like I said, he's 60, and I'm like, thank you for whatever you've been through, you know, plus positive, negative, whatever. I mean, whatever it is, it's created an amazing person. So
yeah. And I mean, I have a very, very dear friend that I lived with in Maui, and have traveled with him, and we've done journeys together, and he's 69. You know, and he's a beautiful, beautiful man. So I'm quite intrigued by the spectrum of age of men that I'm able to hold and engage with, and have, you know, really transformative experiences, just different flavors. You know, I kind of feel it's like different flavors of ice cream, which reminds me that, like, I used to have this analogy when I was younger that women, when they go to get ice cream, they'll tend to, and I think of ice cream as in like flavors of people and lovers and stuff. That's like, I like chocolate. I'm always going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to deviate from chocolate. Maybe I'll add sprinkles one time, but I'm pretty much like, this is my go-to. Whereas I felt like men maybe they liked chocolate, but they wanted to try all the flavors, all 50 flavors, all 100 flavors on this thing. I'm going to try this one, and maybe I'll try this one. And okay, I'm going to try this one. And then ultimately they'll choose the chocolate. But first they want to have tried all the flavors. And so that was like my analogy about how men and women approach lovers and sex and partnership and all of that stuff. And I'm ready to update that analogy that, you know, we as women have an opportunity now. There's like, you know what? I'm feeling a little spicy today. I think I'm going to try one of these flavors, this like super erotic cardamom chocolate from Senegal that I've never had before, you know, something crazy, you know, and just giving ourselves that permission. And I think this is the key, is that giving ourselves and each other as women permission to go out for what we want, permission to express our desires, permission to determine our needs, permission to role play, permission to explore, permission to be curious. Because the shaming piece, so much of that happens within the sisterhood itself, and the judgments that we hold to each other and even to ourselves. And we put ourselves under tremendous scrutiny. You know, any mother will say that like, and I've read the articles and the experiences of women who get judged on who they are as a mom, you know, moment to moment all the time. And so, like, that's not a good mother, that is a good mother, and what does that mean? And like that kind of amount of pressure. And so, like, to shift it, at least in this sexual component, that if like we as women can be encouraging and start having these conversations among each other of like, what does turn you on, and what are you interested in exploring, and what has held you back, what is holding you back from really stepping in, and like, maybe we just do a crazy night where we make a meal and sit on vibrators. Let's just try that. Or like, maybe we just like get dressed really fucking hot just for the sake of it. Not even to get a guy, but just because it feels good for us, because it's about us and how I feel. Because when the more that we do things that are feeling good for us and what we desire, the more we actually get what we want from the outside world. But if we're doing things, if we're dressing up in order to get the guy, in order to, whatever, it's a misaligned energetic, and it doesn't end up going very well. But when we're in our power, when we're in our expression, and we're in our joy and delight, things like magnetize to us, like Jay, like the lovers that have come into our lives. Like, and I don't think it's a coincidence, Ella, that like by you being, this is okay. So Ella had a potential other man to explore things with.
Yeah. And he was, he's like a whole nother level, right, Jess?
Yeah. Whole other
amazing
level.
Yeah.
Amazing man, whole other level. She has massive respect for him. He's really big into BDSM, and that was part of the reason this podcast is even happening, is because
exactly.
we started having conversations with him, and she's like, like,
I need some help.
I need some help. What is going to happen? I don't know what we're doing, like all this stuff. And I'm actually really quite impressed with his communication with you, and how he showed up and expressing his intent and desire, and like understanding of the male and feminine energy. Like, I mean, really profound stuff that like I have massive appreciation and regard for. I have a very judgmental bias towards male doms. So he proved otherwise. So I'm grateful for how he was towards you in communication and stuff. And it's like you were like on the brink, like on you're like,
I had a trip planned. I was gonna go, right? I mean, just to explore, and I mean, we're both single, and let's check it out, right? I mean, again, once in a lifetime for sure. Off the charts, once in a lifetime. So yes, Jess, keep telling the story. And then
so I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, she's going next week. I've been checking in on her. How are you feeling? Are you getting ready for your trip? Are you excited? Are you there? Like, all these things. So I know that this thing is happening. And here's this man that she's known for years from afar, and then like kind of getting closer and then closer. And like now she's in this moment where she gets to experience this thing that could launch her into like, who knows what path and door and experience, who knows. But, she was saying yes. And that's like, this is, what I want to say, why this next piece is important for what happened for Ella, is because she was open and willing, and she said yes. And she was literally taking the step. Mm-hmm. And then because I believe, because you did that, because you were willing, because you were open, because you were like stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, I was the smallest person in the room, Jess, the smallest person in the room. We talk about that, right?
Yeah. And like, she's like, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Like, and we went over her expressing her fears, which is a big piece in the communication. And he was like, so beautiful at how he handled it. So she's like, yes, she's about to step over. Here we go. And then what happens, Ella?
Well, again, I remember I was sharing with you about this, this ironclad fortress I have around myself. So I have a lot of platonic friends, about a dozen at any given time, and they're all platonic. They all just stay away. Well, one in particular had been, I'd known him for years, and I've seen him at different events. And then it's been about 6 months, and he's like, I'm going to Montana. You want to stop and get some lunch? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? So I have lunch, totally casual. He comes back, hey, I'm coming back through. Do you want to have lunch? I'm like, we're just here. Okay, right, at lunch again. Again, great guy. And so then he would come and he would stay for the weekend, totally platonic. He goes, I said, I'm planting some trees. I live on a small farm. Anyway, and he's like, oh, I'm happy to come help. And I'm like, oh, okay, right? Totally platonic. Upstairs, stayed in his own space, the whole thing. And he actually invited me to go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I'm like, okay, I think I got this, right? Boundaries, I got this. So again, the first night, again, complete gentleman, same bed, the whole thing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make this, right? It's going to be okay. Well, the second, I don't know what happened. Anyway, hugged me, kissed me, just held me. Because I want to share something that is really sad. I've been single now for like 2 years. Single. And my goal for this year was to spend the night with somebody, a man, right? Just be held in the arms. I didn't want to sleep with them. I mean, I could if it happened, but I didn't want to pick some random guy up on the street that maybe can't hold or doesn't hug, doesn't have the connection, right? So anyway, so then the second night I'm like, well, told me we got this good, right? He's right there. And then it just went from there. Like I said, he's a little bit more bold, and it wasn't going to be the 22nd, we're done. And I'm like, I said, are you sure? He's like, I'm sure. I'm like, oh, you better hold on, because I got 2 years, maybe a lifetime. What I come to find out is I think it's a lifetime of the lack of connection and intimacy. And sure enough, I mean, it's like, holy smokes. So yeah, it's fantastic. So that's what happened. So, and again, can I say this? I mean, I don't know the other that I was going to meet. Again, you saw the communication with him. He's eloquent. He knows what he's doing. But I will tell you, my new boyfriend is pretty amazing. Like right up there. And I would have never, I almost passed on him. He's just a normal, nice guy, right? He doesn't show up in a jacked up truck or whatever.
Right.
He's just humble and fantastic. So I almost missed. He goes, no, I know you weren't quite ready yet.
Well, and he's an older guy, so he was patient, he was mature, he was able to wait and do it at a level that you were ready for. And I wanted to, so that's fantastic. But so let me just be clear. He is the guy who was into BDSM and wanted to explore that with you. You gave up.
I passed on him. I passed on him.
With your boyfriend. Okay, great.
Yeah, because he stepped in just out of the blue, like again 2 weeks beforehand, and then I'm like, well, and I think I talked to you, Jess. I'm like, well, do I pass on this because this guy may be good? And then I'm like, you know what? It's so good, and he's so there. I'm so open, about everything. I can speak to him about everything. There's no judgment. Here's the past, here's the present, here's the future, blah, blah, blah. And he's just, no problem. Bring it on. I'm like,
I think there's something to that, because I have had really crappy luck seeking a relationship, seeking regular sex, because it just hasn't happened. I think I told you that two of the guys that I had been in relationship with just weren't responding or weren't connecting with me. And so I was like, okay, well, I haven't heard from him, so I'm just going to move on. I'm not even going to ask him what's going on. I'm busy. He'll reach out to me when he's ready, right? And he hasn't reached out. So I was like, forget it. I've experienced a man, that was Luke, who lives out of state, that on my whore tour, remember, when you said, well, maybe we're whores or sluts or whatever, and we're shamed for that. That's one of the reasons I named it the whore tour. A friend of mine named it, because let's normalize it and make it fun, right? This was me going out and seeing my guys. So anyway, Luke was a swinger, and I was like, yeah, I'm not part of the swinging set. I don't want one-offs, and I'm not interested in that. And I come to find out that, he may swing, he may have a lot of different experiences, but he really does enjoy ongoing, ethically non-monogamous sex, which isn't necessarily polyamory. He doesn't have to have feelings for me, but he has a connection, right? So I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to start exploring swinging. And that was when I joined the group SDC, Seek, Discover, Connect, I think is the website, sdc.com. And so the men that I am now in relationship with were both swingers. And I have in 2 years of being in this lifestyle, I've never found anybody that I can say, okay, definitely Mondays and Thursdays, I am with this person and it's ongoing and it's easy and it's simple. I haven't been able to find it. Once I stopped looking for that kind of a relationship, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to I'm going to just have experiences right now. These were the 2 experiences I had, and both of them wanted something ongoing. So that whole idea of not looking for it, we attract it because we open ourselves up to a new experience. You opened yourself up to BDSM. I opened up myself to being willing to not slut shame myself and have multiple experiences. And now look at me. Now I'm going to run out of time. There aren't enough days in the week for me to have sex with the men who are interested, who want ongoing. Isn't that horrible?
Oh, what a celebration.
God, we love you, Lisa.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. And I want to applaud both of you for your bravery. It takes courage. It takes courage to go outside our comfort zone. It takes courage to being like, you know, for Ella to be like, for her to say, I want to be held for one night. Like that is her desire. Yet she wasn't going to do it with some random guy that she didn't know. Like she, you know, and she wasn't going to, you know, it was like going to be organic and it was going to be in the right way. And even if she didn't know what that looked like, she knew what it didn't look like.
Yeah, that's
sometimes we as women, we don't know what we want, but we know what we don't want. So if we have a desire like Ella's, and I stress the importance of this, of being able to have a clear desire and know what your boundaries are, what your fuck no's are. You know, and for Ella, her clear desire was being able to connect in a bond, but that wasn't attached to sex or anything like that, but it was still a level of closeness. And her boundary was it wasn't going to be some random guy, you know, like all these things. And then she had an opportunity that seemed like the most likely choice, right? It seemed like, I mean, he has all the things. He still does have all the things, and opportunity doesn't go off the table. And that's the other thing too, is that a lot of us, we think like, if we don't take this opportunity right now, we'll never have it again. Bull fucking shit. That spiral will come around. It always does. It always comes back around. As long as you're still breathing, that opportunity will come back again. So maybe it's not with him and in that way or whatever it is, but like just staying curious and open. And I really, really, really applaud you for, even with as juicy of this opportunity as it was with him, that could have been, you like stay true to yourself and honest, and then see how you were rewarded for that. So we play in this game of choose your own adventure, and every moment you get to choose, and there's these sliding door moments. And that was a sliding door moment for Ella, that like, you know, that this thing that she has with her, you know, new boyfriend, like she couldn't have dreamt it up or written it up.
Oh, I didn't think it existed, Jess. I mean, I had lost hope. Honestly, I'd lost hope. And I think that's why I built these walls. I'm like, you know, again, is there anybody that's going to have the intimacy and then the physical, you know, and again, we talked about before and after care, you know, and Jess and I have spoke about this quite a bit. And it's like, my boyfriend has it times 10. I can't even describe it. I can't even, I mean, it's not even close, can match my energy. And it's again, for me, it's not being fearful of that. I think because I've been, I've had to hold back. They couldn't handle it. I don't do anything crazy. I'm just, you know, just got a lot of energy. I don't know. I'm just passionate. And I want an intimate connection. And I think he's given me all of that in patience. 6 months. God dang, who'd hang around for 6 months?
And so worth the wait.
Absolutely.
You know, so worth the wait. And he understood you almost as the mayor, you know, like, okay, like how do you like show up to a stable and in the circle, you know, you let the mare like feel things out. You know more about horses than I do. I'm just spitballing, but it's like, you know, you allow them to feel your energy. You know, you don't rush it. You're not throwing things on. You're anticipating. You're like noticing their movement and how they respond, and you know, understand that they're telepathic. And you know, there's an approach he had that worked really well for you, and didn't ever feel like he was trying to snag you. Because women can sense that too, right? Women can sense when there's like a game, whether the guy will do it or not. And both ways, by the way. By the way, women I know you're manipulators and we've been taught to manipulate, but like being really clear about what we want and our desire goes such a long way. And what I was going to say about Lisa, about like her saying like she wanted to have a certain, consistent lovers on a basis, and she had her clear desire, she was seeing the boundaries that she had, or the results that she wasn't having, and then she got inspired. And that's the thing, is that like our intuition, like our bodies want us to win. The universe, the divine, like they want us to win. And so for Lisa, to me, to like take that inspired thought, like she was willing to overcome her own judgment of self by looking into swingers.
And the story that I'm telling myself,
yes,
I'm not able to, I can't. So I changed my narrative.
Yeah.
Right.
And said,
and that changed your reality, which takes us back to the very beginning of this podcast, or whatever this series, however many segments there are. But it takes us back to the beginning of this first cut, which was about that our stories and narratives we tell ourselves shape our reality. And when we're willing to change the narrative of our story, we have a new reality. And so that is perfectly in line with that confirms for me, like with what Lisa's gone through and what Ella's gone through, is that when we're willing to overcome those things or shift our narrative about it, and doing it from within ourselves, not from like being pressured, from being pressured from like someone being like, oh no, but from you within yourself being like, you know what, I'm willing to see this differently. I'm willing to change my narrative about this. And you both changed your realities. It's amazing.
I'm
and
so
we're both
thankful.
Extraordinarily happy. We're getting everything we want. And what I love especially is that I'm getting everything I want, and it takes 5 or 6 men. Ella's getting everything that she wants, and she's getting it in a monogamous relationship. And I think that is fantastic. That what we are experiencing is that anything is possible in a multiple way, right? It doesn't have to look one way. I'm satisfied, you're satisfied, Jess is satisfied. It's just, we're doing it differently. We're approaching it differently. It doesn't have to look the same. And we can all have that level of feeling empowered, not just within ourselves, but because we've chosen the men that we've chosen, who are also wanting us to feel empowered.
There's a closing thing I want to share for myself, and both of you, of course, are welcome to share your closing. But this is a really important piece that came to me a couple of days ago, when I recognized that the only person who can truly please me is me.
Oh, yeah.
And the only person who can actually displease me is me. The only person who can let me down is me. The only person who can like make me feel like on top of the world is me. Why is that? It's because by allowing the people that come into my inner world and how I set myself up, and realizing that if someone has disappointed me or hasn't been able to please me, that's on me, because I wasn't clear in my communication, or I wasn't clear with my boundaries, or I wasn't expressing my desire, or I wasn't taking care of myself, or I wasn't listening to my body. It comes down to me. And so it's become an even deeper level of me, from wanting to be like, oh, he made me feel this way. No. I didn't have good boundaries to protect myself from even allowing that to come into my life. Or if the conversation started happening, or if the treatment had started happening, I didn't nip it in the bud and be like, you know what, that actually breaks my boundary. Bye. Like we're not having this.
That's anymore. Incredibly, that's like, that is, Jess, thank you. Because again, I can say I've been guilty of that.
We've all been guilty of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it gives our power away, and and that's totally fine. I'm learning it in a deeper level for myself. I'm like, oh, so if I'm unhappy with someone I'm with, I'm actually unhappy with myself, because I wasn't good at communicating or clarifying or discerning in myself, or listening to myself and giving myself that, or speaking the truth serum that maybe was painful to say. And I wasn't willing to do that. And the other big piece that I want to share, this final one, is, and I recognize this only from yesterday in my process, that great like devastation loss like can actually be the catalyst for the hero's journey, for us like going outside of our comfort zone, to explore something new. So if there are women out there who've been are getting out of relationships, getting divorced, having some pretty big devastation of whatever kind, or loss of somehow, a lot of us tend to break down. We break down and we get stuck in it, and that's totally normal and understandable and okay. And in the hero's journey, which we all are, we are our own legend. That's one of the components, that's one of the absolute key pieces for the hero to get onto their path and their journey that they're meant to get on. So looking at that as being the way to break open and break out of our cage and go outside our comfort zone and do the things because we're like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. Because how many of you hold yourselves back at the risk of losing what you have?
100%.
100%. The last
right?
2 years have been healing for me.
I would say that I have 2 points, but one of the things most recently that you were talking about not being clear, it's like that was one thing I addressed in the previous podcast. Well, might be a future podcast, depending on where it falls, but was the fact that my sense of shame after having sex with my husband, needing to use a vibrator because he wasn't satisfying me. So I was taking care of it myself. So I was empowered to make sure that I was satisfied at the end of a sexual encounter, but I was doing it after he fell asleep or by myself or whatever. And I wanted to say that you can also be clear and have boundaries and repeat them and be with a person who ignores those boundaries and ignores your being clarity. And what happened to me last year when I was in that situation, I was being told one thing, but I was experiencing something else completely. And this happened a couple of times, but I had been clear. I am very clear I have learned to be very clear about what it is that I want. And this was not a partner, it was my meta, was not abiding by what it was that I wanted in terms of boundaries. And so I kept saying, well, it must be me. I've got to be more allowing or blah, blah, blah. No, the truth is she doesn't listen. So I got to change the circumstances. So I can be clear. And if a person can't honor my boundaries, well, then I can change the relationship. I can change the circumstances. I'm still in power. Even if my boundaries aren't being met, I can shift the circumstances. So in this particular case, we were living together and it wasn't working for me, no matter how often I made my boundaries, expressed my need for whatever it was, it wasn't getting met. And so at the end of it, I was like, yeah, we just can't live together. And I have to be okay with that. And it was devastating. But we were talking the other day, she goes, oh, last year was so really wonderful. And I'm so much happier when we're together. And I was just like, yeah, I totally get that. That's wonderful. It didn't work for me, but I didn't realize it wasn't working for me until it exploded. And now in retrospect, I can say, oh, wow, if somebody isn't listening to my boundaries, I can just change the circumstances and I don't have to try to change them. I'm not meeting their needs. I'm not meeting their needs. So if we're not happy, there's a way to make it so that we can be happy. And she and I are great friends. We're better friends when we're apart. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm at peace with that. And when I spend time with her in smaller amounts, I absolutely love it. I can enjoy it, but that was a great learning experience. So we do want to let go. We do want to be clear, but we also have to recognize when we are being clear and we're still not getting what we want, we're responsible for that. It's not about the other person. It's about what circumstances we're allowing to happen to not have our needs met.
So powerful. Yeah, you don't have to make the other person bad and wrong and then
Absolutely.
Cut them out. You can just shift into, okay, here's a dynamic that does work for me based on our level of being able to meet each other in these points. This is the dynamic that works for me. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And it is absolutely not about making them bad, sick, and wrong. It isn't about them. It's about our ability to connect, and my needs aren't being met. Well, okay, I'm not going to change what I need. just going to shift the circumstances, and it makes everybody happier. I believe so.
Absolutely. Ella, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share in closing today?
I'm going to say simply this. I love. I wait all week for these conversations. And you guys have opened my eyes to so many great things. Again, I think for me, just being open and again, owning your own power and being, I'm going to use the word selfish, and what am I looking for? I think that's been really good, giving me the permission to not, to say what I'm looking for. So that's it. I love these.
I didn't know what I was looking for. So I just also want to address the women or the people who are listening to our podcast that I don't know what I want. That's probably part of my problem all along. I didn't know how to express it because I didn't know what I wanted. As I've gone on this journey, and one of the things I've expressed to my new lovers is like, I don't actually know what I like. So I'll feed off of what you like and I'll tell you yes or no whether that resonates with me. Mm-hmm. And so one of my lovers wants to do a full swap with another couple. I've never done that with somebody. So I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll try it. I may not like it, but I'm willing to say yes and see what happens. And he's going to look out for, I trust that he'll look out for me and keep me safe. So we don't always know what we want. So we just have to be brave enough to know that we can get ourselves out of a situation.
Yeah, that's right.
And say no when we're ready to say no.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here and playing together. It's like, it brings me the highest, it's just such pure joy that, we're able to share our stories, our laughs, our challenges, and being brave and sharing our voice, because we get to express this. And this is, for me, especially at this time of the world, being Americans and being women, like having our First Amendment right, freedom of speech, to be able to share and speak about whatever it is that's coming up and lighting us up. So let's exercise our rights every freaking day that we've got them. That's the way we keep them, is by actually using them. That's how we know how important they are, and being conscientious about that. And come and check out our after hours membership. We've got juicier things that we talk about in there, videos and techniques, and it's a great place if you need questions and answers, and maybe wanting to do a deeper dive or connect with Lisa or myself or Ella in other ways. If you need some kind of mentorship or guidance or coaching or something like that, each of us are on this really epic journey of reclaiming our sexuality and what turns us on, because the more turned on you just get more of what you want. It's weird how that happens. The more turned on you are in yourself, the more you get what you want. So thanks so much for listening, and look so forward to connecting with you beauties and all of you listeners. Thanks so much, and look forward to catching you on the next podcast.
Bye, everyone.
Yay!
Want more? Head over to theplayfulpodcast.com for all the juicy things we have to offer. From there, you can join our community, where you can get access to after hours, attend upcoming workshops and events, and even book a session. Bye for now.